This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Hello, welcome back to Emotionally Unavailable. I'm your host, Malisa Hepner, This series has been essentially answering the question, if humans need connection for survival, why then do we do so much to work against ourselves and create disconnection between ourselves and others? And we've covered the why, attachment, your trauma experiences that you've had. We've covered the how, the way your brain makes predictions with a negative bias. And those are really good episodes. Make sure if this is your first one that you go backwards and listen to the other ones. But I'm really passionate about talking about this subject because this was the thing that I noticed. I lost my dad from an overdose at 15, and then I lost a son 30 years later to a synthetic opioid overdose. He thought he was buying one thing, bought a manufactured pill with something in it that killed him immediately. So in the grief process for me, because I believe that grief kind of just highlights what was already there, I had already started to notice the disconnection that I had created after losing my dad, which truly happened because I was on someone else's podcast and she used a word that made sense to me. It clicked something into place. And it was something like, she said, protective factors. That it's not that I had never heard that word before, that phrase, but I was talking about the way I viewed my friendships. And of course, this is from a 15-year-old egoic perspective, but still, I definitely viewed my friends as having abandoned me. And then as I got older, not even got older, as I was doing this work on myself, I could see the barriers that I had placed between me and them. And it really started with seeing the barriers that I had placed between my spouse and myself, and understanding what I was actually trying to protect by having these barriers in place. And basically what I came to the conclusion of is that when my dad died, I was already entering that situation with such an unsafe foundation, but it rocked even that shaky foundation to its core. What was left of it was just destroyed, to where I really constantly thought about who would die next. For a little while right after he died, there really was the who's next, just a lot of hypervigilance. And then just slowly throughout the years, with more loss even. My mom died when I was 22, and it wasn't as sudden, but it was fairly sudden. She was incarcerated in a women's prison in Oklahoma and got a call from the ICU that she had started vomiting blood. She had what's called esophageal varices, which is varicose veins in the esophagus, and they had started rupturing. And it's a really common side effect of hepatitis C or cirrhosis of the liver. She had both. And it was a 3-week process where the first 4 or 5 days, maybe even up to a week, she was in a coma. She came out of the coma for about a week and then back in semi-comatose and then died. So while it wasn't walking in from school hearing that your dad died, it was pretty sudden. And I was pregnant with my first child. And so with her grief, I think I was more open with it, and open to it, but also I think I was just more concerned with making sure to not repeat her mistakes as a mom, because like I said, I was pregnant with my first kid. So I don't know if I even dealt with it that much, honestly. I think that's probably why I had I don't know, it's hard to describe. But anyway, so I started to notice how I was placing these barriers between myself and others, and that was something that I was working on prior to losing Jake. But then after I lost him, was really wrestling with that feeling of people not showing up for me the way I wanted or needed them to. And it was in that I started to ask myself questions. I was very determined to not lean in to what I was feeling because I felt like it had to have been a confirmation or a negativity bias because I was really learning to see those signs in myself at the time where we have to make our outer world match our inner world. So if I've got all these stories that were written for all these years that I'm very certain of, then I have to move in a way that's going to make sure that's the outcome that I get. I've had lots of episodes talking about this in the last 6 months since Jake died because I've seen it in so many different ways where even then when I get what I want, I'm still upset. That's when I could understand, like, it's because it's incongruent. It's not matching the story in my head. So that was really eye-opening, but confusing and kind of heartbreaking too. And so that's been really the journey that I've been on. So I just wanted to, open up with that. I'm sure I've told some variation of that at the beginning of each of these episodes, but I'm really passionate about teaching people how the stories that were written for them, truly, they were written for them by the programming that they received as children, how they're still carrying those narratives to this day and how they're creating a lot of disconnection in our lives are meant to be spent with others and shared with others and to be held by others. And that was really a skill that I had to develop, was learning how to be held by others. And that was something that really I was so proud of after Jake died, that I was able to receive all of the love that I really was given. And when I say people weren't showing up for me, it was really after that first. Unfortunately, he died right before Christmas. So lots and lots of texts, calls, food for, he died the 13th for 10 days and then almost none. And so that was really something I had to reconcile and understand how not to take that stuff personally and how to advocate for myself and ask for what I needed and wanted and who was safe, who wasn't safe. Those were all things that I really had to learn. So that's what's leading me to today's portion of our talk. Like I said, go back and listen to the other episodes. I'm actually very excited about them. And one of the reasons that I've decided to make a series about this is because this is kind of the new thing that I'll be talking about at mental health conferences, is teaching clinicians how to see this in themselves and their clients. And so just kind of seeing what feels organic to talk about, what maybe feels a little more stuffy. So just kind of testing out some of the talking points and see which parts I really want to add certain things to or take away things to. So that's why we're doing that. So today's portion of this series is okay, so you've told me the how, you've told me the why, you've told me what the next step is to start replacing, give it new information, giving your subconscious and your nervous system new information to predict from. How do I know that what I'm doing is working? How do I know that my nervous system is getting more calm and feeling more safe? Because I've been very open about the fact that I coddle my nervous system a lot. Coddling as a word has received such a negative connotation. I know I used to hate the word too, and now I'm like, coddle me, baby, coddle me. I think we as people have not received enough coddling. I'm going to give you an example. Kid comes up, has scraped their knee. We do a lot of, you're okay, instead of, my gosh, I want you to think about what you would do if you saw a person be like, no, oh, does it hurt? Trying to understand the experience, whatever. We would all be like, okay, it's a bit much, right? Because we're not trained for that. But truly, and notice the resistance that comes up in your body when I say this, but truly that's what we need. We need coddling. We need to learn how to receive that. Mostly we need to learn how to do that to ourselves. So I've been very open about the fact that I spend a lot of time coddling myself, like, honey, what's wrong? Did you get your feelings hurt? Lots of talking to myself. And guess what? It works. It works. Okay. If you knew me 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, I was a psycho. Okay. I'm not really a psycho anymore. I have my moments, but okay. So how do we know it's working? Because here's the thing. We assume that healing is going to be this thing that happens. You're going to receive a certificate of completion at the end of this thing that happens that says, all right, now go be. You're healed. Do that thing. And that's just not the case. The thing that I've really had to learn, and it's funny because I did an episode, I think it was episode 4, and it was called Embracing My Fire. I'm almost positive. I really like that episode still to this day. So you should listen to it. In fact, I'm going to link it into the show notes, which I don't think this is the first time I've done that. But anyway, I'm going to bring it up because it was the beginning of my spiritual awakening, truly. I had been really into astrology and starting to see astrology as like a blueprint for my life and how these placements really played a role in personality and experiences and whatever. But it wasn't until I was doing like a new moon or full moon identity audit that it all finally, like I had a culmination of like things that I had been learning all come together for this moment that like literally I had this giant epiphany, which really is a spiritual awakening, is the way I define it. When you have these, oh my gosh, it all makes sense now. And so the way it went for me is that I was doing the identity audit and listing all the characteristics of this person, that my ideal person, who I wanted to become. And when you do an identity audit, you do things like, how do they dress? What do they do for work? How do they spend their free time? What's their morning routine? What's their nighttime routine? Who are they married to? Where they live? All of that, right? And even just like, how do they interact with their friends? And this one got a little more specific in terms of like, how do you react when this happens? Things like that. And I had done a little bit of actually, I'd been really serious. Hey guys, it's me. Emotionally Unavailable is produced 100% in-house by me with no team. So if this show has ever helped you and you want to give back, subscribe to the Patreon. There's several different levels with different benefits in each. Check the show notes and you can see what each tier subscription will get you. There's also lots of fun things coming down the pipeline for the Patreon subscribers. So get in early. You can get a workbook, you can buy merch, you can do any of the things, and all of that supports the show to help it keep going. Really appreciate every single one of you. I love you so much and I can't wait to see what we continue to do together.
I'm Hannah. I've lost 75 pounds in 20 months with GLP-1s, plus diet and exercise. On Row, I've gone from struggling to run a mile to running farther every day. You can access FDA-approved GLP-1s online. Get the support you need to reach your weight loss goals. Go to row.co/weight to see if you qualify. I'm a paid Row partner. 20% average weight loss in 1 year in non-diabetics with obesity or overweight with a weight-related medical condition versus 3.1% in placebo arm. RX only. To stay informed about serious side effects, go to row.co/safety.
About future self-journaling the summer prior to that. This was in like April of that year. In the summer prior, I had done a lot of future self-journaling because I had just learned that I was emotionally unavailable and I was trying to just figure stuff out. So future self-journaling is you're doing a lot of imagining yourself as your highest self, your best self, and just talking about it. And that did work. I mean, it really felt good in the moment, but it wasn't like, I thought it was just supposed to automatically rewrite or reprogram, and it didn't. So, the things that I was still really ashamed of were still happening. And so anyway, I'm doing this identity audit, and the part that really struck me was when you then say, okay, how is the person you are right now incongruent with this person? And as I started to draw the lines between this thing and this person that I wanted to be, I mean, obviously the big ones, like I wasn't making the amount of money I wanted to make, I'm not living where I wanted to live, whatever. But like who I was starting to see like, okay, all this person that I'm trying to be is like perpetually unbothered. I could see that she was just this Zen Buddha person that nothing could get under her skin. She was not reactive at all. And just, again, perpetually unbothered. And I was like, Melissa, why are you trying to be this Zen Buddha person? Like, I've always been very fiery, but I was kind of just learning how to hold my fire. Like, I had finally seen it, and I was a very reactive person, and I had a lot of shame over that. And it made me feel like if people really knew the real me, that they wouldn't have the, respect or love that they professed for me, that they would, shun me in essence. And so I had kind of also though, but I'd been a really big people pleaser where I was really internalizing a lot of my interactions in public. If somebody, just said something wrong or did something wrong, I would just internalize it and then go take it out on my family. So something that I'd been working on was like just kind of letting people know how I felt in real time, even if it was really rude. Like I was working on not keeping my face fixed, to a certain way so that people couldn't read my emotions. Like, in fact, I was doing the exact opposite. I was making sure that they could tell just from my facial expressions and body language how I felt. That was different for me because that was a level of vulnerability that I had never experienced. I had been very good at buttoning it all up and making sure that I only let out what I wanted to let out. unless I was at home. And it really was uncontrollable at that point, because when you've been shoving stuff down all day, it's going to come out eventually. So I was proud of the fact that I was starting to really become an advocate for myself and others. And I've always had an easier time advocating for someone else, but for myself, I really had a tough time. And so I was like, well, there's a huge piece of incongruence. In one breath, you're like, yes, I am this fiery being, and I want to learn how to hold that fire. And I think it was because I had learned I'm an Aries rising. I'm also a Leo moon, which is a giant pain in the ass. But so I have two fires in my big three. And I learned kind of what the plight of an Aries rising was, and kind of the journey. And it really is the fool's journey, if you're familiar with tarot. Which, I mean, I think we're all on the fool's journey, but, like, how can I be a heroine in my own life kind of sitch? And I was learning that this fire was a beautiful quality in me, and I didn't need to extinguish it. And so I was like, Melissa, why? Why are you trying to get rid of all this and just be this, like, baseline human? And it really was because I had so much shame around my reactivity. So that was the first time that I really thought to myself, like, I'm actually great exactly how I am. I maybe need to be a little less reactive, and I need to be, working on growth and evolution, but, like, I don't have to fucking completely remake myself to be anything great. I am great right now. And you can really hear me talking that out too, because I was driving when I realized all this. I went home and I recorded a solo. And so that's a very special episode to me. So I just love if you listen to it. But anyway, so that's the thing, is that I realized, we believe that being healed looks a certain way. And then as I got so much more information and grew and became even more enlightened and all the things, then I really could find myself judging myself if I had a normal human reaction to things, and would give myself a really hard time for reactivity, for getting my feelings hurt, even if I wasn't reactive about it. It really bothered me. I've talked about it a lot on here. I've talked a lot about on it with Angie on Unquiet Soul, just about how people in the spiritual community really act like you're doing some stuff wrong if you are sensitive or get your feelings hurt or triggered or whatever, which just isn't true. So anyway, I kind of started to notice this with clients too, where I'd be like, are you judging your healing? Are you frustrated with yourself because you had a normal reaction? You thought you were never going to have those reactions again. So now I'm pretty upfront about and it's never stopping. It's going to happen a lot less, but you're still going to have these experiences where you're triggered, someone hurts your feelings, whatever the case may be. And it's not about that stuff never happening. It's about how you respond. That's the thing we're trying to change, is how we respond. Because this life isn't asking perfection of us in any way. It is not. It is asking us to respond different. That's it. So anyway, so some people, they're like, oh yeah, when I get there, I'm never going to be anxious. I'm never going to be overthinking. I'm never going to be triggered. And that's just not true. It's not true. You're going to be anxious and overwhelmed and sad and all the things. And it's just about knowing how to take that next step. It's almost like backing up versus leaning in. So I'll get into that, but that's really, I think, a good example or a good visual of kind of the way I approach all things now is, for instance, I no longer call myself depressed. If I'm feeling pretty low, I understand it to be a chemical response. For instance, what goes up must come down. Your body requires what's called homeostasis, which means even. So if you get a lot of something, it's going to give you a lot of the opposite to even it out, right? Baseline. So if I know when I do speaking engagements or things that give me a lot of adrenaline and a lot of dopamine and serotonin, I have to get back to where I'm going at a good amount of time, have things that are good for your immune system, take care of myself as if I'm sick, because if I don't, I'm going to get sick and be in bed for a couple of days from homeostasis. It's that big of a response chemically that my body then has to shove a bunch of stress hormones and stuff at me to regulate. It wants to get back to even. So the only way that it can get back to even is to give you the opposite. So when I am feeling what I now refer to as a chemical low, I just ask myself what I need to get a little bit higher. Maybe some chocolate, maybe a shower, maybe a walk, maybe a talk with a friend, maybe a crafting project, whatever it is. little bites of energy to get back to baseline. That's it. I'm not struggling with like hardcore clinical depression either. So hear me when I say I'm talking about your normal, like, oh, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Like I'm feeling pretty low today. I just asked myself, what's the next little thing that I could do to get the tiniest bit of energy? Sometimes it'll give me a lot more energy than I was anticipating. I'm going to be right back to baseline. Cool, cool, cool. But anyway, so like I said, over the last few weeks, we've talked about how the brain is constantly predicting from the past and filling in the blanks with whatever it knows to fill it in with because it needs certainty. Your brain and your nervous system require certainty, so it's going to provide it for you, whether it's the right or wrong answer. And we've talked about the nervous system learning through experience, not through information. So that's why when you're trying to talk to yourself and you're like, you know better or, whatever, or even just receiving the information like through a video like this or self-help books, whatever, that's why your nervous system isn't just converting because it needs to experience it. So you have to get really committed to, okay, I know this and I'm going to practice this, which means the next time some little thing comes up where you're going to get reactive, you have to practice it. You have to. Okay, so the question we're trying to answer today, how do I know it's working? I'm trying to give my nervous system new experiences. I feel like I'm responding different. Like how do I know that it's working? I don't know if I finished this thought earlier, but when I was talking about the chemical low, I don't lean into the chemical low unless I'm just feeling exhausted and know that I need to rest, but sometimes that's what you need. But I don't lean in, I back up and I observe. I get very curious. I don't go, I'm in a bad fucking mood. I mean, I can if I want to. It doesn't make me a bad person, but like I really try not to waste any days with like bullshit.
I'm Serena Williams, and I'm healthier on Ro. I've lost 34 pounds in a year with GLP-1s, diet, and exercise. On Ro, you can access GLP-1 options, including the first FDA-approved GLP-1 pill for weight loss. Go to ro.co/journey to see if you qualify. 14 to 20% average weight loss in 1 year in non-diabetics with obesity or overweight with a weight-related medical condition versus 2.2% to 3.1% in placebo arm. RX only. To stay informed about serious side effects, go to ro.co/safety.
I mean, I don't want a whole day to be over and I just think the whole day was me just spent in the worst mood. It does happen. It does. But again, sometimes you really just need rest. So I'll do that. If I'm not feeling social, I'm not going to force it. So, you have to learn how to take care of yourself. That's a whole part of giving your nervous system new experiences is not self-abandoning, but you're just going to make some comparisons is how we're going to start with understanding if we're making progress or not. If the old you was just like, I'm angry, and then responded to their environment in a very angry way for however long, that's the old you, right? Hopefully the new you is now like, ugh, my chest is tight, or my shoulders are tight, my neck hurts, whatever. You are beginning to notice instead of just living in that autopilot, like, oh, I'm so mad, this is a terrible day, whatever. Instead of stopping and be like, man, what is going on? Like, I feel so tense. Like, anger isn't unreal. It's valid sometimes, but like, there's usually something going on, something you're not addressing. So for me, if I'm feeling really angry or agitated, I'm going to pause and I'm going to go, what do I need? Sleep, food, shower, friend, walk, podcast, craft, time with my little baby dogs. What do I need? Instead of like, fuck you. That's the way I used to live. Like, y'all better just stay away from me because I'm having a terrible day. So that's one thing is like noticing things are happening instead of just like, I'm angry. That's the state I'm in and it can't be fixed. Another way is if you are starting to make predictions, like, and you notice them. So like if let's say your friend hasn't texted you back, this is like, I'm always using examples for me, but something that can get to me is like if somebody doesn't respond to my text, especially like turn off your fucking read receipts. Come on. People just walking around with their read receipts on and then I saw you read it. Now, I actually have lots of experiences of me quickly opening something, seeing it's a lot longer than I have the time to read right now and having to come back to it. But before, I wasn't that person. I read everything, but I don't have the capacity for that now. Like my brain just doesn't work in the way that it did before losing a kid. So even if the message isn't really long, if it's something that like makes my brain feel really overwhelmed and I can't just immediately come to an answer, you're not getting a response from me for however long. I don't know. I can't, maybe never sometimes. If the content of the message feels overwhelming in any way, I absolutely cannot respond. But is that because of the other person? No, it's because of me. So I've actually had a lot of experience now of being on the opposite end of that, to where I can take all of that so much less personally. I mean, that was a thing I had to teach myself anyway, was like, their shit's about them, your shit's about you. But then like seeing it in action in real life and in real time was really helpful for me. But yeah. So if you're starting to notice like getting frustrated that somebody hasn't responded to your text, and you're automatically assuming something about why, that's your brain making a prediction because it wants the certainty, right? If you have gotten to the place where you're noticing your brain doing that, then you know your nervous system is healing. If you are getting to a place where you can even have the awareness that your brain is predicting, you're on the right path. So again, that first example of, oh, my chest is tight, my shoulders hurt, my neck hurts. Like, that's a great step in this process, and it means it's working. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep pausing and responding just a little bit differently. Even just in the whole, something that I wanted to, when I was planning this episode, sometimes my brain still wants some certainty. And so I will provide it with like the opposite of what the initial prediction was. So like if my brain's like, they can't stand me, or I'm too needy, or whatever it might be telling me, I'll then be like, no, they're just busy, or they're overwhelmed, or whatever. Like, so in some ways I am still providing my brain the certainty, but at least it's a more positive thing that's not going to keep me disconnected from them. It's just me allowing them the time, the space that they as humans deserve, you know? But that's been a thing for me, is just learning to give everybody space and freedom to be who they are without expectations. It's a work in progress always, but that is my hope, is to not have expectations of others. So, and the thing is that you're still going to spiral. Maybe you're still spiraling, but like if it's not lasting a week the way it used to, maybe it's only lasting a couple hours. That's huge. Like, let's celebrate the wins here, because that is huge. Because it's not about being perfect. It's about just a little bit better, not better for any other reason than this is what you as a human deserve. You deserve this. I know for me, that wasn't a motivating factor whenever I wanted so badly to be somebody completely different. And I wanted so badly to not be so reactive and just to be sweet and soft. I really wanted that, but I really didn't want it for me. I wanted it because the shame I felt for all the pain that I had caused people around me, until I found love for myself. And once I cultivated that love, I want that for me. I deserve peace. I deserve joy. I deserve love. And I'll tell you, it motivates me a lot more to continue to do this work on myself, to continue to grow and evolve and enlighten, knowing that I'm the one who gets to experience all of this. So I know that sounds really selfish, but first of all, let's rebrand the word selfish. It means I love the shit out of myself. So yeah, I'm saying for you, we're doing this for us. The natural byproduct of that is everyone around you is going to feel it too. That's the thing I tell all my clients when I first meet them, is when you change, the world around you changes. You naturally raise the vibrations in any environment that you enter because of who you are. And I bet that was the case before this, but man, it's really the case. When you start doing this work and you find all this peace and just yumminess inside of you, the energy around you can't help but shift when you walk in. You're a energy shifter, And so, yeah, we're just trying to respond a little bit different, a little bit better every time. And it never stops. You never stop learning or growing. So you're still going to encounter difficulties with this. I still have times I lose my shit. I'm still not the best spouse. I'm still not like number one mom. There's lots of things that I could judge myself for, or others could judge me for, and that's fine. But I love myself so much that I'm willing to be imperfect and to cut myself a lot of slack, So your recovery time shortening, that's important. That's a great win, where you had a couple hours of spiraling out of control and then you were like, okay, got that out of my system. And I think you should. I think if you're feeling all that, experience it and then calm down, get yourself a little more regulated, deal with it like how. If you don't, let's go back and listen to these lessons. But yeah, so I think that is a huge win in how you can tally whether or not your nervous system is healing, softening, feeling safer, whether this is working or not. Maybe you're just demanding less reassurance. I was a reassurance kind of gal. Like, why can't you just reassure me sometimes? And I think sometimes it's okay. Like, I'm still going to need that sometimes, where I'm just in my head or just feeling a little off. And I think it's okay to ask for that every now and then, but people can't live to reassure you that they love you, that they're there, that nothing's wrong. This is stuff that you have to learn to do for yourself. So count that as a win if you're not requiring that reassurance, or you're not double texting like, hello, hello. Or if you're overthinking and about some medical thing and you go to Google and you're not doing that anymore. Like, the fact that you're not having to have certainty as much, that is a huge win. And I would say the biggest is if you can become curious, and like I said, if you can lean out instead of leaning in and be more, wonder what's happening. Why all of a sudden did I get really freaked out about that? Why did I just assume it meant this or whatever? Huge win. You know that your nervous system is repairing when you can get curious about your reactions. So that's really the piece that I think is the most important, is just being curious, not demanding excellence or perfection, but asking yourself at all times to be curious about your responses and the responses of others. The way people respond gives you so much information about them, not about you. That's the whole problem, is that we've been looking at other people's behaviors to tell us certain things about ourselves, and nobody else's behavior tells you shit about you. It tells you a lot about them, though, and I have gotten really good at noticing other people's insecurities, and essentially when they're confessing something through an accusation, I feel like when people react a certain way, it gives you a direct view into their soul and how they view the world. So when you can get curious, it feels so much more empowered. It really does. Because again, they're giving you information about them, not you. Nobody's actions say anything about you. Your actions say anything about you. That's it. And curiosity interrupts prediction. So it's kind of the opposite. Prediction is certainty. Curiosity is questioning, being okay with not knowing exactly what the answer is. And this was something that I've talked about a lot more with other people than necessarily on the solos, but it was something that I really had to learn, that when I was constantly trying to make those predictions and find the certainty of why would they do this? What did I do anything wrong? Anything like that? That was me analyzing and pathologizing their behavior, because even when I had an answer of,
Want $1,000 weight loss medication for $50? It all starts with Roe's free GLP-1 insurance check. Just upload your insurance card to see if you have coverage, then relax. Over 200,000 people have qualified for a $50 copay through Roe. Go to ro.co/health. Half of covered patients have a $50 per month copay or less for medication, plus $145 monthly Roe membership fee. Deductible cost may apply and final cost varies by insurance plan. For safety information about GLP-1 medications, including boxed warning, go to ro.co/safety, RX only.
well, they're doing this because they have this particular attachment style or this experience, and their trauma has made them feel this. I had to stop with all of that and say, really? That doesn't fucking matter. What matters is what I need right now to feel better. And that's been a huge step for me, is to stop even thinking about what other people are doing, saying, thinking, feeling, and say to myself, like, obviously I'm having a response, a reaction to their behavior. What do I need right now to feel better? So, you just start to ask yourself, what am I noticing? What do I notice in myself, in my body? Are there sensations that I can feel? I really am so much more connected to my body now. My stomach takes a lot of hits when I'm like just energetically connected to somebody and hearing their experience or whatever. My stomach's like, that's so sad. And I would say, last but not least, a really, really, really huge way of knowing if the work you're doing is working is your willingness and ability to allow others to be disappointed in you. Knowing that you've done your best, knowing that you've given as much as you could give, and feeling safe in the fact that somebody else is going to feel let down because your capacity didn't match their need, and being okay with it. And coming to a place where it's not going to make you do the thing that you don't have the energy for, or apologize a million times, or explain, whatever the case may be. When you become more comfortable with other people feeling disappointed in you, I'm on the right track. Because that's one of the big ways that we will become dysregulated and not feel safe in our own bodies, is not being able to tolerate other people feeling disappointed in us. So if you can not perform, if you can stay connected to yourself, if you can still love yourself, if you can still have the day you were planning to have, regardless, if you can still love yourself huge, then you know what you're doing is working. The work is working. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. It's not going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but you will be a person who can love yourself no matter what. And that's really what we're doing here, because you cannot share love with others if it's not something that you've cultivated within yourself. So the whole idea of like, I love hard when you're actually a very codependent person, that's not love. That's just trying to receive, trying to please. If your interactions with the people around you start to feel a little boring or mundane, you're hitting the sweet spot. Because so often we're so used to the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows that are violent and sharp. And when the work is working and you're feeling more steady, everything around you is a little more steady. And, there's not constant guessing, there's not emotional whiplash. And that is a good thing. So keep that in mind too. And so just to kind of wrap things up, when I say you know that it's working because you start to respond differently, it's asking yourself, so what do I do next? Because that questions everything. That question changes everything because it means nothing is fixed. There's always another step we can take. And I need you to understand that activation isn't failure. You're a human. You're allowed to have human reactions, however big they may be. Repair is important. Learning, like I said, that next step is important. Learning when to apologize and be vulnerable about what was happening is important, but it's okay. So this week, I would love if you journaled a little bit and asked yourself, what activated me? What are things that triggered me? What got me kind of, whatever it is, overthinking, angry, whatever the words are for you. What are things that happened with? And what prediction did my brain make when it happened? How did it fill in the blanks for me? What certainty was it trying to provide me? And then what actually happened? What was actually going on in the situation? And then what helped me recover? What did I do to feel a little better after those interactions? And did I recover faster than I would have before? Okay, well, that is it for me. I love you guys. I hope you're doing well. I appreciate you being here. Make sure that you check out the show notes because I will link that episode as well as, just that episode. And then if you're not a member of the Patreon, check that out. My Linktree link is in the show notes, and that has access to any of the other ways that you can be closer to me. Again, I love you. I thank you so much for being here. And if you haven't rated or reviewed on Apple or Spotify, please do that. If you're a YouTube watcher, hello, please subscribe. I'd also love if you'd go interact on Spotify or Apple as a favor. Pushing for top 3%. I'm in the top 5% right now. So one of the ways that happens is if you are engaging with the content. I think that's all. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. I'll see you later. Thanks for coming to Emotionally Unavailable. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share. Emotionally Unavailable. All right, that's it from me. So make sure that you check out the show notes for links. And until next time, let's all just keep swimming.
INDEPE and cut.